Do we have a planning consultant report?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Moving on to public comment, and this is open to anything outside of just the agenda items. Mr. Eddy, 3 minutes.
Yep. So the thing that I was looking at, you guys have a planning consultant report, and a planning consultant, if I were to be at other townships such as Williams, Monitor, planning consultant comes to the meetings. You guys as a board know your planning consultant does not show up here. I've been to many of these meetings and have yet to see. And here's the thing, I have property around Aranet County and Bay, and Spicer has an office in Standish. Spicer has an office in Saginaw. Why do we use Lansing? That is a problem I see, because if I look at other townships' minutes and I look at Spicer, wow, they have people that show up to all these other municipalities. Even the county uses Spicer for many things. And why do we have to use Lansing? And why are the communications with Spicer always so hard to get for the public? I mean, I've FOIA'd Spicer documents since 2015, and boy, oh boy, are they like pulling hen's teeth in this office. So I know that Alan Bean was the one who took care of the master plan in the past, even at these other townships such as Monitor and Williams, Bangor. I've seen him at all of them. So the concern that I have is this master plan with all the consulting. I don't see a consultant showing up here, yet the consultant creates the master plan. To me, the public needs to be here more and more to observe how and why we're changing anything to do with the history of Kaukauna. I mean, if there's history here, there's a foundation here. We need to build off that, and not just change stuff and, I don't know, take the legs out from under people is what it seems, blindside. I mean, explain why things got changed, how they got changed in the future, I think, is integrity. So we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Just want to comment real quickly to follow up on that dwelling ordinance that you're talking about having a public hearing on again. You know, I don't know what the backstory is with the short-term rentals that you're talking about. It didn't seem like that got communicated, so I don't know what that discussion was supposed to be. However, I do think that that is in part and parcel what you're talking about with that tourist dwelling. In order for that ordinance to go through here, public hearing again, every time one of those has been held, the majority of people have something to say against it. And yet that doesn't seem to be taken into account when the vote happens, which is very unfortunate because these people have thought enough to come out and talk to you about it. And it's, we don't want this isn't right, and then voted right through. Very interesting. However, should you have another public hearing, should you vote for that again, should you send it to the board, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting if you send it to the board. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It'll be interesting. Because this is getting the cart before the horse. You need to talk about short-term rentals. You need to have an ordinance for that. If you put this through so that somebody can just get a special use to be able to do this, then you're going to come in afterwards for short-term rentals? Why would you not do short-term rentals first before we put this through? For one development. For one development. You need to look at consistency across the entire township. If you're not doing that, in my opinion, you're not doing the job of a planning commission.
Thank you. Additional public comment?
Yes.
Oh,
You go ahead.
We do a short-term rental.
Name and address.
Yeah, my bad. Cameron Penix, 53 South Linwood Beach Road. We do a short-term rental at 43 South Linwood Beach Road. We've been at most of the township meetings lately with the concerns over the cabins being built, obviously. I hope whatever goes on too, it's not in any way going to favor one over the other. We make a small living off of what we have everybody obviously likes additional sources of income. So I hope one doesn't get prioritized over another in the aspect of how things go in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there it goes.
I'm Jeff Cush, 947 South Linwood Beach Road. I'm also chairman of the Board of Appeals. The short-term rental thing is, you're getting over your skis on this thing, very far over your skis. The issue right now, there are short-term rentals going on, and I know of up and down the beach. The gentleman that just talked, they're doing it illegally. You cannot operate a home like R1, R1A. You cannot do that and have it. It has to be commercial property. Also, there's another thing to look at, deed restrictions. All the way down the beach, these are subdivisions with deed restrictions that do not allow for rentals, hotels, restaurants, anything like that. But nobody seems to want to do anything about it. And again, if you're going to, I've been involved in this thing for well over a year and a half now, and nothing that comes before my board on it. But again, like Lori said, getting over your skis. You have to come up with a short-term rental, and again, you can do nothing. In fact, the state of Michigan is trying to take that right away from townships and counties. The city of Bay City just passed an ordinance, short-term rentals only on commercial property. No, you've gone ahead and changed all that, half of, 3 lots out there to commercial. And perhaps, if it isn't stopped, it's going to go to short term. It's not, but even if the state changes the law, cannot negate deed restrictions. They are paramount. There's case law coming out, and a local attorney down where I am, between Hotel Road and the end, there are 2 that are operating. One's right next door to me. We shut him down last year when he bought it. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. In the spring, he's starting to do it again. He's running it. And a local lawyer in our neighborhood simply wrote him a letter explaining the whole thing to him and asked them to consider changing what he's doing, get a hold of him and explain what they're going to do. One has not heard from him yet, but there's no rain. The other one is going to fight. He's going to fight and he's going to lose. And there's 2 ways about it. But again, like she said, you're getting over your skis. You're way ahead of yourself. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
And I'm going to say something. Charles Campbell, 525 South Huron. And what you're saying is a fact, because there's a big case that was just up in Traverse City, and the courts favored the short-term rental. But the cases that are taking place in Zealand and Holland, that's what made it get to the state level, because they restricted short-term rentals to the downtown commercial business districts. And the people along the shorelines want to be able to do the short-term rentals. So that's just, and that's what's brought it to the state level. With different people I talked to in the state, then
Mr. Cush, I'm sorry, but you had your 3 minutes. It's not a question and answer.
so it's created that dilemma, even though we don't have it. We don't have an ordinance, and we need a short-term rental ordinance. Simply put, so that they don't just pop up everywhere. I was driving down M13 by the old pump shop on South Huron Road. He had a room for rent sign out. Now, I understand people need to do things to make a living. I get that. But at the same time that I get that, that means you come to the township and you say, we're going to rent a room at the house. That way our fire department knows it's multi-families in that building. And it makes life a little bit simpler, and they can find out if, because the one thing when you look at short-term rentals, I've been pulling different ones up online. The first thing it says is you go to your local government. But as a local government, we don't have it. So that puts us in a very interesting predicament that actually even before the master plan's done, we should have that done.
Thank you.
The point you made on the fire department.
You want to speak
Because
as the
it's-
fire department, or are you speaking?
I'm
as the
speaking
public?
as a fire department on two facets. So this number one, a single family home renting a room is still a single family home because it's not multiple units. I am familiar with municipalities that have adopted both short and long-term rentals, as well as the delegations of inspection and permitting of those through my employment. And there's a lot more to getting these ordinances into place. There's a lot of overhead to them. There's a lot of man hours in working with people on these. But we don't want to make it too onerous in any community, obviously. You know, we're not out to, we're looking for standards. And I wasn't really prepared for this, and I'm kind of got worked into it, so I haven't had a time. You know me, I like to have like 47 pages of facts and graphs and everything. There are some good ordinances out there. There are some that aren't so good. There's state legislation I know that has been working through last session on taking over short-term rentals. And I'm just going to dump it into the Airbnbs of the world. Whether you have a cabin on the shore for fishing, or whether you have a loft in downtown Holly in the historic district, or a place in Traverse City, or whatever, that is working through the state level. I know it was last session. I didn't know if it got picked up again this session because I lost track of it. It did get picked up again? Okay.
It's floating according to what they said in the Township magazine.
Okay, I
An
had.
article about it, and I went online to double check the moment I seen we were gonna talk about short-term.
So it came back through this session, because I thought it ended last session, or, you know how bills do in
It's still,
Michigan.
it's still floating.
It
It's
came
not
back
dead.
around.
It's not dead.
It was defeated last year.
Oh, was it?
And now the,
And I know with our community, there are, with the village's ordinance, those rentals are dispersed through the community. They're not just zoned out. So the precedent I know are set in some of these rentals on where they're at, some flexibility with where they're put. I guess I'm trying to give as best answer as I can without remembering every word in the
No, I
ordinances, because I have them.
appreciate it, and we're, none of the four of us added this to the agenda, so we're all a little short.
So we're all on the same page.
So
Exactly.
unfortunately, I'm opening it up.
I
Additional further comment?
I
before we
can
close
certainly,
this?
I can certainly learn more. Mount Pleasant City Fire, Cadillac City Fire, ourselves at the village do the inspections on a lot of rentals and have a lot of policies in place and ordinances. So I certainly can, as we go down this road, get more information to try to help everybody be unconfused, including myself.
can you clarify to the rest of the board? I understand, but when you say village, what village are you speaking in reference to for their clarification?
I have the similar position at Collin Township. I have the similar position at the village of Holly as well.
So he's not talking about the village of Linwood, just so.
Oh,
everybody-
I'm sorry.
Just so everybody understands that. 'Cause when
I
you
thought
say-
it was Florida, villages of Florida.
If it was the villages of Florida, I wouldn't be sitting here. I checked, they're not hiring a fire marshal, I looked.
You don't have a golf cart, right?
I would get one.
Any additional public comment?
I'd like to just make a little follow-up on that. my understanding is that what we have, at least at one location at the beach, is one single-family home that is renting multiple rooms to strangers. And that's where it gets a little bit interesting. You have to figure if they're driving here, you're gonna have multiple cars, right? And just the fact that you have strangers under the same roof changes everything as far as how that needs to be regulated. Just keep that in mind. When we're talking about short-term rentals, this is a lot more convoluted than just a little single cabin. Once you open that, it's a Pandora's box. But we need to at least look at it. At the same time, I'm a landlord. I have to have inspections on my rental house because it's in a city. I pay for those inspections. They make sure everything's up to code. If anything's changed when it comes back around, then those are the changes I have to make. Now, instead of a carbon monoxide detector here, you have to have it here, and I have to prove that I moved it there, and I have to hardwire this, and you know, that's how it goes. If you're going to make money on something, right? You have to have it up to a certain level. There's a higher expectation. This has been the Wild West for too long. We need to actually start looking at having regulation, not onerous necessarily, but consistent. So at least we know who's operating, that they're operating safely, and they're operating within the rules that are common sense for a community. And one other thing, people on the beach want to have these rentals, was what Trustee Campbell said, yes? I can tell you there are many, many lake communities that are up in arms about short-term rentals, because these are homes that they have had in their families for decades, and now their next door neighbor has new people there all the time. You have to have some kind of guideline for these situations, or it's going to get even worse.
Okay.
I want to
Thank you,
clarify,
Lori.
I want to clarify something. The short-term rentals was brought to our attention because of a letter that was written to the township board addressing a problem with short-term rentals.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do is get ahead of the game because of that was brought to our attention. Otherwise, when these things aren't brought to our attention, we might not know about it. Now, same with your predicament out at the beach. If somebody doesn't come forward and say, listen, this is what's going on, we may never know to address that problem. So the short-term rentals is not something we're jumping on, it's something that was brought to our attention, and to our attention through the township board.
So another thing is I'd like to comment is short-term rentals. What is the definition of short-term rental? Do we open up all the township, all the houses that are rented? I mean, you are
That'd be
getting
long-term.
way
Well, no,
Billion.
you're looking
over our
at,
heads here on the.
right, and that's why we're going to Spicer.
30 days.
To get direction on what you
Or
do.
less.
Do you limit short-term rental to just commercial? Do you limit it to a certain zone? Do you,
There's several rental units throughout the township.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you just treat from one short-term to house rental?
It's Pandora's box.
Yeah,
We all
the
agree.
thing is,
Because
the-
it
But
exists
it's
currently.
doable
This-
if you are actually.
This is an
taking
interesting
this out.
letter that the state of Michigan was working on, that bill that
It
Mr.
doesn't-
Bush commented about, Bill 4722. And it says, it is a residential use of property and a permitted use in all residential zones. That's what the state is trying to push through right now. It is not subject to special use or conditional use permits or procedures different from those required for a dwelling in the same zone. Goes on to say it is not a commercial use of property.
but that's not in effect yet.
This is what they're trying to
Right.
put in place, and that's why townships are trying to address this
Right.
right now.
But they
Just to say, you know, it would be a rental for up to 30 days, where when we talked about the C1 use, we set up to 180 days. So we would have to be very specific, because they're saying that is a rental of 30 days. Of a single-family residence, dwelling unit is 1 to 4 family houses, or a unit or a group of units in a condominium. The bill states it would not permit regulations applied on a
Okay.
consistent basis.
So let's do this. I think we all know that this is a huge discussion topic, which will be picked up at a later date with vast amount of public input prior to any vote notes being
We need feedback from Spicer.
from Spicer
Yeah.
with other additional, guidance of what other townships have done. We don't need to recreate the wheel. And again, I'm not sure why Rick added it to the agenda
Well,
tonight, but
And the wording is study of a short term, so we're looking into it. That's all we're doing, and bringing out positives, negatives, and do the negatives outweigh the positives, and we do something. Positives outweigh the negatives, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything. It's the same as when we went through barn dominiums. Did we have to change anything? Not really.
okay. Lisa, you're the only one that hasn't used their 3 minutes. Would you like to talk?
No, he hasn't either.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, Pat, all right.
Put you on the
Lisa,
spot.
Pat, either of you like to use your 3 minutes? Okay, the public comment is,
Hold on. Did you guys all get Rick's resignation letter? For you guys to say that you didn't know he was gonna be here? Because at the township board meeting, they showed a letter that Rick was resigning, but then he was coming back supposedly.
He rescinded his, he was
He
gonna
rescinded.
rescind.
Can I make a
Were
comment
you
to
guys
that?
aware of that?
Legal
All of
aware
you?
that.
sure.
Okay. That resignation letter is no different than last year when we had a resignation letter. And if I chose, or you chose, any of us could choose to write a resignation letter. But if the township does not receive the resignation letter and vote on it, then it's not legal.
But I'm just asking if you guys received it as a board for the planning commission, because he's the chair. If you guys all had reviewed, just to prepare for him not being here, seeing.
We were told that he had rescinded and he was staying
Yeah.
on through the end of the year.
And that
So
was
I fully,
But you were aware that he was resigned.
contemplating it.
Contemplating.
Yeah.
Okay.
that he did, he rescinded it, and
And he's not here.
And
That's
the
what
board
I'm-
never accepted it.
to my knowledge, I received a text from him earlier today, and he had every intention of being here, and he said he couldn't make it, and asked me
I was just curious because it wasn't
3
brought
minutes
up.
before, so
Does he live in Midland now?
I don't know where he's living.
Okay, because
I know he
I,
bought, it's no secret, he bought a house in Midland. I don't know if he's moved yet. He's got his house on Linwood Beach. According to the attorney, that we're allowed one member of the board that can be
from
from,
a different,
Transient.
that
can be from a different township.
doesn't seem like a good idea, but that's just me.
Okay. Public comment. Public comment closed. Next meeting, November 9th. Make a motion to adjourn,
Second it.
7:42. Do you have a second?
I did, Charles.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
How come there's never an opposed to adjourn, Joe?
Mr. Cush, you got a minute?
We're done.
Good to see you, gentlemen.
In your thoughts, is that a township problem or something? You have heard
The first one is ordinance says
Sure,
you
you might
cannot
go fast.
have run a business in a residential home. Ordinance says that. Okay? And a rental is